Hi, students. On this wintry afternoon, Chapter 2, Diversity. Of course, we know we've heard a lot about it, and a lot of demonstrations on Black Lives Matter. Many areas of diversity have been addressed throughout the summer months and the fall, and even into winter, and still going on. It's important for us to look at bias, stereotype, what we think about cultures, ethnicity, race. And you might wonder, well, why is it important for me to do that for myself? I don't have any biases. We may think that, but this chapter helps us take a look at the various kinds of diversities and also take a look at maybe some hidden biases that you may have. And you might say, well, why is this important? Why does it matter if I have a bias or a stereotype, as long as I am not being vocal about it or treating people disrespectfully? It's important that you look at it and, first of all, realize if you do have any biases, the first thing to do is be honest about it and say to yourself, you know what? I do. And then what you need to do is kind of explore that, your feelings about it, where they come from, and what you can do about it. The reason it's so important is when you're working with young children, you may discover that those hidden biases come out. You may be working with families who you just simply are biased about, and it's very difficult for you to treat that child with the respect the same as every other child in your program. I had to deal with biases through the years, and I will share with you the two recent ones I had in the last few years. One of them was, of course, 911. I wasn't there, but I was certainly glued to the TV when all that happened. And I realized after that happened, I had a lot of bias toward Muslims. Anytime I would see a woman going down the street with her burqa on, or see a man that seemed to have that ethnic persuasion, I wanted to just remove myself and not be near them. Of course, that was wrong, and I had to address that and come to terms with it in my own life. Another bias I had was against young Black males. I know the reason for that. My daughter had a boyfriend who was a young Black male who was violent with her, knocked out all of her teeth, broke her jaw in 14 places. She was hospitalized for over 3 weeks. Domestic violence. It was truly a fact. And I found after that happened, every young Black guy I would see, that would literally come to my mind, and I would have to deal with it. So it wasn't something that, I could just say, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter. For me as a teacher and educator myself, when I have students, I have to always remember it doesn't matter the diversity, it doesn't matter the gender identity, racial, anything. I must treat all students with respect. And your chapter talks about the different areas of diversity. They kind of break it down into 6 different areas. But first of all, I want to just briefly touch with you, what does theory say about diversity? Well, in Bronfenbrenner's theory, the ecosystem part, it means that differences in the children's microsystems also account for the differences in children's behaviors and development. Vygotsky's theory would say social environment and culture provided by their families and the community is driven by that family's identification with their race, culture, and ethnicity. Family systems theory would say that the strong emphasis on ethnicity and culture are factors in that family's beliefs, practices, and values. And all these things do affect the children in the microsystem and throughout the other systems. So, what are the basic diversities? Your chapter talks about 6 of them. The first one, of course, is ethnicity. race, culture. It's kind of all combined into one type of diversity. You really need to know the differences between those definitions, and I won't go into them. I know one of your assignments asks you the definitions of these terms: ethnicity, race, and culture. That's going to include the family's cultural history, family customs, celebrations, foods, etc. The second one is language differences. Would you know how to work with a child who is considered ELL? That means English language learner. They come into your program not knowing any English at all. What would you do? It's important that you know how to work with children who are of that persuasion. Also, you may have a child who's bilingual, and what that can mean for you. The third area is economic differences. Of course, this means poverty. It means homelessness, and everything that kind of goes with it. You know, you hear terms: low income, they're on welfare, they get food stamps, and we have to really look at, do we have a bias towards any of that? If somebody in front of you in the grocery line uses their debit card, the one that they use for low income, would that bother you? And there's a lot of areas. I know Head Start has been one of the biggest federal programs that deal with poverty in young children, because they know that poverty definitely impacts a child's behavior and development and education. So they're a wonderful program that deal with all aspects of economic differences in families. The other one that's addressed is gender role identity. Many changes have happened regarding gender identity, and it's important that we do understand the various pronouns for gender identity and work with these families without bias. And even though we may have different beliefs or values in regards to LGBTQ families, we must not disrespect and we must value that difference. I know last year we had a little boy in our program who was gender identified as a girl. And the parents were very grateful that our program accepted that child, because 2 other programs had not, simply because he identified himself as a girl. So we worked with the child. We used the pronouns she, and were not biased towards the dress, which was girls' clothing and girls' hairstyles. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to respect that family's wishes in regards to gender identity. The other one that's mentioned is religiosity, a person's religion. Well, we know that church and state are separate in regards to religion, and so not much is said about religion with education. But we do know that you'll often have children who come into a program who are not part of, say, Christmas celebrations. It may be Kwanzaa. It may be Muslim. It may be many different things. So what does that mean for you? Do you celebrate Christmas in the classroom? If there are different diversities in regards to religion, you have to keep that in mind. I know in my past in teaching, it was often a child that was Seventh-day Adventist. They do not celebrate Christmas, nor do they celebrate birthdays. So I had to take that into regard in what I did with my classroom. And it was important to understand and respect that family's choices. The other one's geographic regions. All of you from West Virginia, what's a person think of when you say, I'm from West Virginia? Well, a lot of times it's, oh, the hillbilly state. Ah, so you're a hillbilly. That is kind of a stereotype that West Virginia has gotten. West Virginia also has gotten the stereotype with a lot of background, in fact, as one of the states with the lowest income rates and poverty. You don't like to think about that in regards to economic areas or regions, But different states will have different stereotypes for the people that live there. I know when I went to school in Oklahoma, we were all called Sooners. Why? Where did that term come from? It wasn't derogatory, but everybody that lived in Oklahoma was a Sooner. So you'll find that many states have that as far as geographic region. And that about sums up some of the basic ideas in your chapter 2. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.